together and know that it's not an easy thing, a growing community, and to be a leader. We thank you for all the good things that have happened here and pray that you continue to lead us in that direction. Thank you so much for this fall season, for the beauty that we've had and the changing of the colors, for the good harvest that we've had in this area. And we just thank you for our families and our friends, our schools, and all the other good things we have, for our parks, for our police officers, people that are in the transportation system, what we have, and be willing to support each other. We ask these things in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen. Thank you.
Need order. Roll call.
Robinson.
Present.
Ingram.
Present.
Height.
Present.
Warner. Present. Morrison.
Present. Acknowledge the Posted Open Meetings Act. As required by state law, the City of Kimball has available at least one current copy of the Open Meeting Act posted in the meeting room. Agenda items may be moved up or down on the agenda at the discretion of the mayor. Additions may not be made to this agenda less than 24 hours before the beginning of the meeting, unless they are considered under the section of the agenda and the council determines the matter requires emergency act. Now we will move to the consent agenda item. The minutes, the claims, and the financials. It can be handled as approved, or they can be considered separate.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda items as presented.
For a second, please vote.
I wasn't here, so I don't know what the minutes are.
Okay. All ayes. One abstain.
Council. Next item on the agenda is the resolution. Could you speak to that, Mr. Lindsay?
This is the year-end resolution that's required by the state for our street superintendent and boilerplate. What we do every end of November into December for the state, certifying that she is our street superintendent.
And we'll deal with that in the current business. Next item under current business. We have a visitor tonight, Heidi Gillespie. She's going to speak to us tonight and give us some information. Council was trying to learn about the dispatch center in Sydney. I would hope that anyone that speaks tonight will be courteous and civil, because she is here at our request. And well, basically all we will be talking about tonight is the dispatch center. And so if you have questions, keep your questions to that when you're addressing Heidi. We'll listen to her first, and then the council will ask questions.
Where would you like me to sit?
Right over here.
Over here. I thought I'd just begin tonight with a simple introduction about myself. My name's Heidi Gillespie. I am the director for the Emergency Communications Center in Sydney. We serve Dual County and Cheyenne County. We provide all dispatching services for law, fire, and ambulance for those two counties. And of course, NSP, we do not dispatch for. They have their own dispatch center. I have been in public safety in the dispatching capacity for 24 years. I began my career in Laramie, Wyoming, and worked in their combined dispatch center. And for those that may not be aware, a combined dispatch center just means all of the public safety disciplines, law, fire, and ambulance. If I remember correctly, it's been a while, but if I remember correctly, it was 2 law enforcement agencies, 3 or 4 fire departments, one of which included the ambulance service within that fire department. In 2002, my family moved to a small town near Greeley, Colorado, and I worked there in their combined dispatch center until 2013. That communications center dispatched for 17 law enforcement agencies, 24 fire departments, 3 ambulance services, and 2 air ambulance services. For 9 years in Greeley, I served as the quality control coordinator for their emergency medical dispatch program. At the time that I left to move to Nebraska, that comm center had attained ACE accreditation in that emergency medical dispatch program. My family and I came home to Nebraska in 2013, and I began working in Cheyenne County's dispatch center in June of that year. In September of that year, I accepted the director's position. Since I've been home here in Nebraska, I attained NENA, which is National Emergency Number Association. That's a professional association for our industry. Their Center Manager Certification Program designation. I have just completed my tenure as president for Nebraska's APCO NENA chapter. I also served on the board for INRIN for 8 years. INRIN is Nebraska Regional Interoperability Network. And I currently serve on the Service System Advisory Committee's training committee. That committee over the past 4 or 5 years has developed minimum training standards for emergency telecommunicators, as well as the TCPR, which is telephone CPR standards that were adopted by the state legislature. Our communications center, like I said, currently provides all services for Cheyenne and Dual County. That amounts to 3 law enforcement agencies, 7 fire departments, and 2 ambulance services. Currently, I have 7 full-time employees, including myself, and I am looking to fill 2 full-time open positions. Combining the dispatch experience of all of us in our department, we have 77 years of experience in public safety dispatching. Our comm center uses not only a range of equipment, but an ever-increasing number of software programs and platforms to try to provide the best possible service to our responders and citizens. We are a part of a shared phone equipment group, the same phone equipment group that Kimball County also uses. This helps to mitigate operating costs through the use of shared equipment while maintaining access to the newest and most advanced telephone processing equipment available. In April of this year, our comm center was able to purchase and install new radio console equipment, which was not only desperately needed, but is the same equipment that's used in Gering and Chadron Alliance as well. So this, along with our participation in the shared phone system, allows our comm center to be a virtual backup for all of those communities, and they in turn can be that for us as well. So what that means is that if something happens that takes down the comm center, like a power outage or a weather event, something like that, and their phones aren't working or their radios aren't working, say for instance in Scotts Bluff, their phone calls will automatically be routed to our communications center with no delay in services to those citizens needing 911 help. And now with our radio consoles, that can be the case for radio communications as well. It's extremely exciting to me that we no longer need to try to equip and maintain a brick and mortar backup center, because one of the big things in emergency services is redundancy. We need to have a way to provide those services. So we no longer need a brick and mortar backup center. If you want to talk about high costs, trying to keep a physical backup location equipped and operational was fiscally impossible for a small community like ours. I can't wait to see what the future holds for that kind of technology. It just moves so fast. And speaking of technology, I do want to mention a few of the things that our comm center has been able to leverage to help us be more efficient at our work. One of the services that we have available is texting to 911. We have a program that we use that was provided by the state called Rapid SOS. Rapid SOS is a platform that works in concert with our phone system to help pinpoint locations of 911 calls that are placed. It also gives us additional information about like the kind of phone that it is, the phone number. It can help us see in real time where that phone is moving. So if somebody's in a car on the interstate, we can track what direction they're going with a very high degree of accuracy. It tells us if it's coming from a watch, like an Apple Watch, or an iPad, or a phone. We have an additional program called Prepared Live. Prepared Live takes that up another notch. Prepared Live is a software service that allows us to, say, for instance, somebody doesn't know where they are. They're driving through our community. We have a very large stretch of I-80, and we get a lot of people that travel through, and they don't necessarily know where they are when they have an emergency and they call 911, and it'll help us. We can use that Prepared Live program to help locate a person. It's an additional tool to help locate them. It'll also, for instance, in the case of like a car accident on the interstate, we can send them a message to their phone that has a link embedded in it, and if they click on that link, it enables us to see. They could live stream video to us. They could send us pictures. It can help us access their mapping software in their phone to help us locate them if we're not having any luck finding them. We haven't leveraged it for everything yet. One of the main things that we use it for right now is we call them abandoned phone calls. So if somebody calls 911 and the phone call is disconnected for whatever reason before we have a chance to talk to anybody, we can send them a message and say, hey, we got this phone call. Is everything okay? If you can't talk, you can text us. So it gives people an opportunity to let us know if they need help. We also use, and I believe everybody in Kimball County has access to this as well, a system called Panhandle Alert. Panhandle Alert is a mass notification platform that we use, and it allows us to send out notifications to people's phones, to email, or to I guess it's just phones and email, or any mobile device. If there were like a tornado and it was affecting a certain area, or a train derailment that was affecting a certain area and people needed to evacuate or shelter in place, it allows us to send out emergency notifications to everybody in that affected area. And before I talk about our training program, I don't want to forget to mention that for the past 3 or 4 years, I have slowly been able to implement various cybersecurity measures to try to help mitigate our exposure to being hacked and hijacked from a technology standpoint. Departments like ours that are funded by taxpayer dollars will always be playing the game of catch up when it comes to technology, but I feel as confident as one can be about our cybersecurity posture as of today. We're working with a great company called Hamilton that helps keep a close eye on our systems. I also want to talk about our training program. Each emergency telecommunicator is required to obtain and maintain several certifications in order to be qualified to work their positions. There are 4 FEMA certifications, CPR certification, of course, which is a prerequisite to the emergency medical dispatch. We call it EMD. They have to get a certification for EMD as well. There is a basic public safety telecommunicator certification that they need to acquire. They also have to obtain certification for a couple of the programs that we use for protection orders and for warrants and stolen property and that kind of thing. In addition to that, each telecommunicator is required to get 12 hours of continuing education each year to maintain all those various certifications. Most of the certifications are on a 2-year recertification cycle. I currently have 3 employees in addition to myself who hold an additional certification called CTO. That's a Certified Training Officer certification. I personally have additional certifications besides those I've listed. I have 4 more for FEMA, 3 for various instructor level certifications, so that I can train my trainers in-house and save the cost of sending folks out of town for those basic certifications. And then I have a comm center management certification as well. Our training program is designed to be flexible in format and duration. It's roughly 12 to 14 weeks. It can be adjusted to best benefit the person in training and how they learn. It can also be extended beyond 14 weeks or trimmed down from 12 weeks, depending on how they're doing, but it's never less than 8. There's a lot job on their own. My job as the director of operations for my department is to provide my employees with the tools and the training they need so they can perform their tasks with efficiency, accuracy, skill, and most of all, compassion. Our work environment is constantly evolving, and we will always be playing catch up. That's just the way it is in the public safety, or at least in dispatching. We'll always be playing catch up with technology, and there's always room for improvement. I don't expect perfection. Perfection is illusion. I expect honesty, integrity, and your best effort. And that's not too much to ask for. Our best and most important resource is the people sitting at those consoles, and I have an obligation to do the best by them that I possibly can. One of my employees is here with me. She would tell you that my first priority for her as an emergency telecommunicator is customer service. In my personal opinion, everybody is our customer. Everybody. My second priority is responder safety. That is the overarching philosophy that drives everything that we do. Our customer service matters because we are the initial contact point for every citizen needing a response from one of our partner agencies. How we interact with them not only shapes in part that citizen's impression of that agency, it also directly impacts responder safety, and I take that very seriously. I have heard, although a few questions have been asked of me directly about it, that there are some concerns about moving Kimball's PD's dispatching services to our comm center. So I'm here tonight to answer any questions anyone may have about how that would work. One of the concerns that I have heard is that having 911 calls in the city limits of Kimball that are for fire or ambulance services answered by our comm center would create a delay in response. This is not accurate. The way our policy and procedures currently already are account for those kinds of incidents. We have a policy and procedures in place for that eventuality because that scenario already happens. I'm not saying Kimball specifically. What I am saying is that this happens everywhere already. It's the nature of the business. It is not, unfortunately, as uncommon as you might think for a 911 call to be incorrectly routed to the wrong 911 center, hence the need for a policy. Our policy is that we will process that call and provide the information gathered to the appropriate 911 center so they can dispatch the correct resources. We don't just blindly transfer a call and correctly route it to us. By the time we determine that the call is not in our jurisdiction, we already have enough information to give the correct comm center what they need. It would be irresponsible and a disservice to that citizen needing help to make them repeat themselves again. It creates more of a delay to transfer than to not. Not to mention, it creates liability for us to not provide them and the correct comm center with that service and information. The majority of the time, these tasks are done synchronously. We can talk on the phone to a citizen while we relay call information over the radio to the appropriate comm center. Or when we have more than one dispatcher on duty, one will process the call and the other one will give it to the appropriate comm center. I will conclude by repeating what I told the Kimball Sheriff and his dispatch supervisor earlier this week. I am here to help, whatever that ends up looking like. Whether this council ultimately decides to stay with their current center or chooses to have my department provide their dispatching services. If anyone has any questions or concerns, I'm happy to answer them to the best of my knowledge. I'll be happy to work with any of you to try to come up with a clear and smooth path forward. I will gladly share any information on my programs or approaches. No one needs to make decisions or choices without accurate information. Asking for help is a good thing. Asking for information is a good thing. We're better together, and no one needs to try to navigate this incredibly complicated career path alone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council?
I just want to say a couple things, probably more than a couple. We've all heard of disasters recently, hurricanes, tornadoes, small schools. Anybody heard of Uvalde? I think everybody has. What we're here to talk about tonight is response, safety to the community, safety for our law enforcement officers, training and professionalism, and to bring some more support to our law enforcement. What we're not here to talk about tonight is the assumptions, false statements, hearsay, and the name calling that I've been seeing on Facebook and other social media. It's pretty hard to make opinions online when you don't have the facts, and that's what tonight's all about. And I just hope that everybody remembers that going forward. What we're here to talk about is a system that can bring our emergency services that are currently we do not have, which the long term will not increase our budget, and we will not increase costs. This is a win for the city. It can be a win for the county ultimately too. Our police department has gone through a lot of training over the past year, and they continue to. And more times than not, they're doing this training on their own time, at their own expense, and off hours. And they also participate with other agencies in combined training. And the invites go out to everybody, and I do mean everybody. And it's an opportunity for everybody to win on that, having more heads, as you mentioned, more heads together, make this an opportunity for us. I do want to address one thing about a $90-some-odd thousand that we're spending with the county, or $100,000 that we're spending with the county. That is not true. We do spend that money, but the part that's regards to dispatch is $60-some-odd thousand, most $69,000. And that is what is really in question that we're looking at long term. We're not going to be pulling that out automatically. We are wanting to go forward, though. Regardless of the discussion, it should be how much is a life worth. If a dispatcher is on a call, a 911 emergency, someone is having a life-threatening emergency, and an inmate in our jail is hanging themselves, what are you going to do? What's the decision you're going to make? Whose life are you going to forfeit? Because one of those lives is going to be forfeited. 2 years ago, we paid to have 2 dispatchers. We still only have 1. That's a problem. And I think everybody needs to think about that as we start to move forward. So just keep that in mind. So what choice is the right choice? What would you do? So lastly, touch on something that is real. 5 years ago, Kimball was struggling to get officers. We advertised, we would get officers in, they'd park here for a while, they'd go someplace else. Kimball has been competing not only with Kimball County, the rest of the Panhandle, the rest of Nebraska. You can include Colorado, you can include South Dakota, you can include Wyoming, you can include New Mexico and Arizona in that discussion, and Kansas. We have officers that we tried to get that we could have had that went elsewhere. We have some really good officers now. Why do we have that? Because we finally recognized that we could not compete. So the discussion on that we've been spending way too much money on our police department I think you need to look at where we were 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 4 years ago, and where we're at today. That's what bothers me about social media. People don't get the facts. So something to keep in mind. We have a very professional group of guys right now. City government listened, and we went aggressively to respond to that, and we have an excellent force now. I cannot speak for what the county is doing, nor can city council speak to that. What I can speak to is I will not vote and I will not entertain anything that defunds our police department. So that's my comments.
Questions for?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I do have some questions. I just wanted to know, currently, do you guys ever dispatch for Kimball if their electricity or anything goes down? Are you guys the backup to Kimball?
I don't know if we're the primary backup or not, but I know that in the past we have received phone calls and we've taken some of their NCIC traffic when their terminals are down.
As well.
Yeah.
Yeah. The 911 is down, and you guys take some of their calls.
Yeah.
And how has that worked? I mean,
we've never actually received one of their 911. You guys were down for about 8 hours, probably about a month and a half, 2 months ago, and then a 911 came in. We got 911s from their dispatchers testing it because they were told it was resolved, but it wasn't. But not an actual 911 device. But we would normally use E-Rock calls. When there's one of us on the phone with the caller, we would use E-Rock call, which is NSP's station. They have access to it, we have access to it, and NSP could hear what the emergency was as well.
It's a mutual aid frequency on the radio. So yeah, it's like I described earlier. If we get a call, we'll process the call and then we'll give the information to the appropriate dispatch center. Because those things already happen. So, yeah.
I guess I just wanted to clarify. So there have been times in which that has already happened.
Yes.
I think some of our public and us, when we think about, well, how is Cheyenne County going to take our 911 calls and know where our streets are and all of those kinds of things? It's already a system that's set up to do those kinds of things.
Right.
That's what I'm understanding.
Our equipment maps the location, and yeah.
And then I also, how long have you guys been servicing Dual County?
5 years.
5 years. And were there any hiccups transferring having those phone calls move over to Cheyenne County?
I think the hardest piece was notifying the 50 some odd cell phone companies to direct their calls to us. But again, that was 5 years ago. Technology has changed. That's not actually necessary anymore because of something called the EZNet. It's all internet based now, so they can do it remotely by just drawing a geofence. So I don't have to make 50 some odd notifications. So that was probably the biggest challenge, is getting all the cell phones headed in the right direction.
And is there anything that you learned from that you would do differently now if Kimball moves over?
That's a good question. For the CAD system that we use, and CAD is a computer-aided dispatch program. For the CAD system that we use, there's mapping that needs to be created in there so that the right recommendations come. I don't know. I think it went pretty smoothly. I would like to have had the CAD mapping done a little faster.
Speaking of CAD, that was one of my other questions. How would the officers be able to integrate with your CAD system? Would there be new equipment that needs to be purchased? Is it equipment that we have can go on to your CAD system? How does that work?
So, if I may, you guys have access to Mock, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So Mock is a sort of a proxy mobile terminal for the officers that they have in their vehicles. They wouldn't be able to see our CAD incidents unless we copied and pasted them to Mock, which is one of our policies. That's what we do because none of our user agencies have access to our CAD system. But the CAD system consists of two components, the dispatching piece and the records management piece. And there would be a cost associated with the records management piece so that they can access their calls for service and write their reports.
Thank you. And then one of the other questions is, can you maybe speak about all Dual County is different than Kimball County? It's roughly a close population. And so how is the billing and the dollars figured out for things like that?
So that's that piece as far as the billing is done monthly. So once I get my report from the clerk's office on the expenses that have been incurred for a given month, I break it out according to the interlocal agreement that we have with our current agencies, and then send each one a monthly statement.
And I realize it's public record, and I should have called Dual County, and so if you don't have the number, I apologize, but do you know what basically the cost for Dual County would be?
So I do.
Idea of what that looks like?
Yeah. So, and we're talking fiscal year because we're a county department, so our fiscal year runs July 1st through June 30th. So for the fiscal year last year, Dual County's total cost was $64,170.21.
And that's actual cost.
That's actual cost.
Okay. So we don't give you just like a certain dollar amount up front, and then you actually just bill us for the actual cost.
That's the way it currently is written. Yes.
That's
Are you completely fee driven? No tax dollars? Is there any tax support for your communication center, or is it all driven by fees?
Well, I would assume that the entities that contribute to my budget use tax funds.
I mean, I'm talking about those are the fees that I'm reversed. So if you're charging Kimball County X dollars, those are the fees that I'm referring to.
Yes.
Do you have any other funding
Yes.
than that?
I'm glad you brought that up. I forgot to mention that. So there are two additional ways that we receive funding, and it's through the taxes that you pay on your phone bills. So for those who still have landline phones, you pay a tax every month, a 911 tax. And I believe it's set at $1 per line per month. For cell phones, you also have a tax, a 911 tax. And that is set at 70 cents per phone line. And those fees for the hardwired landline phones, those fees are paid directly to our center, and we use those to offset the bills that we send out. And the cell phone fees are collected at the state level, and then the state has a formula that they have voted on to distribute those funds amongst the 68 911 centers in the state.
Okay.
So we get a portion of the fees that are collected by the state. And we can only use those funds for certain purchases. They're limited in what we can use them for.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
How long are your employees usually work for you? I realize it's a strange question. Do you have like long-term employees, or is it quite a bit of turnover? Or?
So my longest tenured employee has been there for 22 years. And then I've got 22 years, 8 years, 9 years. Yeah, Monique is 10. And 4 years. And then I have one that just got released from training a couple months ago.
Like your employer of choice. Response time. What do you see for response time, like with Dual County, where they're outside of kind of your local people? What does the response time look like for events like that?
I can tell you, I think that I can't speak to their response time, but I can tell you what our call processing time is like. Okay. So last year for the calendar year, we answered 5,103 911 calls. Our average processing time was 2 minutes. We handled 37,119 non-emergent phone calls, and those averaged 90 seconds per call.
As your dispatchers are on a 911 call, do they stay on the line to help with that individual who might be having a medical emergency?
It depends on the emergency.
Agreed.
But many times, yes.
Okay.
Yes, there's certain kinds of emergencies that I require them to stay on the phone for.
You explained process time. That's pick it up. 911 would help you with to the point where you get it routed through the CAD to EMS, or what's that process?
Yes. Yeah. So, our average time to process a call and get it entered to be dispatched is roughly 90 seconds. So that additional 30 seconds has to do with getting the dispatch sent out. But, the tones are different for each department, so that adds to it.
Questions from council? But we'll change the rules a little bit tonight. We'll let Heidi stay at the podium there. If you have questions, please just stand. You need to state your name and address for a record. If you can ask your question from your seat. Please, whoever wants to speak.
Gabriel Miller, 511 Webster Street. You said that you have 2 employees that you're working on hiring.
I have 2 open positions. Yes.
How long do you have those positions open?
I don't know if I can give you an answer on that. I don't know that I've been keeping track necessarily, but we've been without full staffing for a very long time.
So you struggle with staffing just like what Kimball says.
Yeah, I was on a phone call with somebody else earlier today, and I said, of the 68 dispatch centers in the state, I think maybe 3 or 4, and I'm probably shooting a little high there, maybe 3 or 4 are fully staffed. So that's a chronic problem in the industry.
Yeah, I understand that. And it's been your comment before we go.
Yeah.
Another thing, Dual County, you said that it was roughly same population as Kimball. Just Google it on my phone. It's 1,900, 3,800. Kimball's twice that. You don't see any problem taking over that much more people when you're short staffed?
It would not create an undue burden on my staff.
Okay.
You've asked 2 questions. Could we have some other people speak?
Yep, that's just fine.
Is there anyone else that wants to ask a question? If
Andrew Balach, 200 East 9th Street, Kimball. Can you currently page Kimball's Fire Department today?
No.
What do we have to do that?
Assuming that you're on UHF or VHF, there would be repeaters that would have to be connected to our comm center. There would be, I assume, a labor cost involved with that from a radio department. And there's equipment that would need to be purchased to put in our radio stack to allow that connection to be made.
And so who would have to pay for that?
Probably the fire department.
My next question would be, you say there's no lag in response time, but if your call time, average call time is 2 minutes, and our dispatch is 2 minutes, well, that just doubled it.
No, you're misunderstanding. While we're processing the call, we're relaying the information at the same time.
Okay, but then they have to take it and process it, because right now you can't pay us.
True.
So that's going to create an issue for us by double the amount of time, right?
I see your point. Sure.
anyone else want to ask a question?
before Necker Drive, how many dispatchers do you have on duty all the time?
Depends on the time of day. We have 3 console positions that we can staff. During the daytime, there's 2 people on duty, unless somebody's sick. At night, especially during the deep night, like 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., there's 1 person on duty.
So all the calls, which I know, what are the chances there's going to be 3 calls all at once? But what if Sydney first, they get that answer?
No, we don't prioritize like that. No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah.
Is there any other question?
So you have one question. I don't know if you can answer it, but if you're bringing on a probationary period employee, you pay your salary.
Starting wage for somebody with no experience is $18 an hour.
Heidi, also, I was wondering, can you speak to the certification of your dispatchers?
Can I speak to it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, sure. So, when I bring a dispatcher on or bring an employee on that doesn't have any dispatching experience, there's 4 FEMA certifications that they have to get. FEMA has an incident command system, and there's 4 certifications the dispatchers have to get for that. They go through what's called Public Safety Telecommunicator 1, which is a basic dispatching certification, and I'm an instructor for that, so I can provide that in-house. They have to get a CPR certification while they're in training still, and that's a prerequisite for the emergency medical dispatch program that we also have, that they also have to get a certification for. And that's also training that I provide. There's 2 chapters in that training that I pay to have taught, because I'm not a medical professional. And it has to be taught by a medical professional, but I teach the rest of that. I get them certified in that. There is a certification that they have to get for what's called Nebraska Criminal Justice Information System, NCJIS is what we call it. And then for NCIC, it's National Crime Information Center. They have to get a certification for that as well. That allows them to enter warrants, stolen articles, things like that.
And then a lot of that's ongoing too.
Yeah, all of that is, except for FEMA. FEMA, for some reason, doesn't make us recertify on that stuff, but all the others are 2-year revolving certifications.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Your questions. Like NCIC, you enter in a warrant. If that warrant gets cleared, gets started, arrest, bad guy, do their thing, do you go in then and clear, or does it, when they get booked and stuff, automatically send something so that it gets clear on the system?
If the short answer to your question is that we take it out.
The manual? Okay.
Yeah, if we put it in, we take it out. That's the short answer.
I hope you get to drive. I just want to know, how that compares to our dispatch equipment wise.
I know that they have the same phone equipment. I don't know about any of the other equipment. I know that they have, I'm sure, the same NCIC certification and the same NCJIS certifications that we have. Those are state and federal programs.
Can I answer on that? Just
If you just give an answer.
So we do have the same phone system. We have the same. Our console is probably older. I think you said you have an updated console.
Yeah.
Ours is an older console. We do have a CAD system that sounds different than your CAD system, as in the officers in their vehicles can see the calls that automatically on their vehicles. And have that capability with the system you have. Is that correct?
Correct. They do not. Nobody purchased that piece of it.
Okay. And so we do have that capability here. But other than that, the certification and stuff would all be the same. Any other question?
I have a statement for the question. If you don't mind using the podium. Gerald.
Lawrence,
There you go.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank Heidi for being here. Your qualifications are impeccable. Appreciate that. Rich Flores is my name. I'm a county commissioner, also a lifelong citizen of Kimball, Nebraska. There's a couple of things that conflict between the city and the sheriff's not a good thing. And I'm not going to go into the he said, she said stuff. I think that we don't need to talk about experience or qualifications. We're just not going to go there. We have dispatch personnel that has over 27 years of experience, and others have many years also. Last year, the sheriff's office received over 18,000 calls, and of that, 7,251 plus calls for dispatch. Of those calls for dispatch, I believe that about 25 were under complaint, 8 of those from the Kimball PD, and over 1,600 911 calls. The math shows equating to 0.002% of complaint ratio. I'm going to skip over this next part too. It was currently meeting with the Cheyenne County Commissioners concerning dispatch, and as you're hearing tonight, moving dispatch is not a simple thing. The question would be, can you handle the extra load? You're looking for 2 people now. And visiting with the Cheyenne County official recently, I was to understand that their staff is experiencing burnout and that they're understaffed. By making this move without thorough research instead of a knee-jerk response is at best foolish. If this move is made, that means that Kimball County will have to make some drastic changes in the way we do business. It will affect that budget drastically, further impacting taxpayers here. Why are we sending county tax dollars to another county when the solution is right here? If this move is made, I've encouraged the mayor to look for a second choice other than Kimball, as we are forced to make changes and we may not be in a position to receive them back if this does not work out. The local radio station reported recently that meetings will be held with other county commissioner boards, and Kimball County has not been notified of such a meeting. I encourage this council and the mayor to have a more open mind to the proper homework before making a decision that's impactful that could be regretted. I also encourage you to hold off on this decision until you have the new council seated. They may not agree with this decision. We are not partisan in this issue. We need to work together for solutions that have understanding, communication, and compromise from both sides. I also have a copy of an email sent to the sheriff's office concerning the dispatch, and I quote, this is from Mike Downing, the EMS director for Kimball Health Services. And I quote, Dave, Zeb, and Kimball County Commissioners, 11/6/24 at 07:13 hours, Kimball EMS was dispatched to mutual aid in Weld County, Colorado. Highway 71 just north of Nebraska state line, incident number 24006270. I wanted to take a minute to recognize the job that KCSO, the Kimball County Sheriff's Office, dispatcher Victoria, and I can't pronounce her last name, as well as Sheriff Hotel was during this call. The accident occurred in an area with zero radio and phone call service. Victoria was able to provide an important information, the patient condition during the initial dispatch, and while units were responding, that allowed crews to make the decision to call for air medical resources. After crews arrived on scene, Sheriff Hotel was vital in going to where he could get phone and radio service to communicate with dispatch to update EMS crews on the status of the helicopter. Victoria did a great job of relaying information between the helicopter and the EMS crews and coordinated a meeting spot at Oliver Reservoir where the weather conditions were favorable for the helicopter to make a safe landing. The patient condition was in dire need of definite care not available locally, needing emergency trauma surgeon. It is my opinion, here again this is a quote, it is my opinion that that if this patient would have been transported by ground ambulance to a trauma center, Scottsbluff in parentheses, this patient would not have arrived or survived these injuries. Victoria and Dave both played a huge part in saving this patient's life without a doubt, assigned Mike Downey, the EMS director for Kimball Health Services. And I'll leave that for your records. That's all I have. Thank you.
Before you sit down, really, we're clapping in. You do that. What do you think we're trying to do here? We're not trying to do a quick decision. We are trying to study the situation. We do not think that the Sheriff's Department is doing a bad job. In fact, the Sheriff's Department has cooperated very well with us. We try to cooperate very well with them. We're not trying to make this an us versus them. We are doing exactly what you say we should be doing. We're trying to find the right solution for everyone. And the only way you do that is to look at different things. And if a local solution is the right solution, that's what we'll do. But we have to be able to study it. And all this other misinformation is not helpful. Give us good, and the facts that you said, the facts that Dave gives us are helpful. But we need to make a decision. Or not we, the council does actually make the decision. And we need facts. And that's all we're trying to do is gather facts. Thank you. Any other questions or any other?
Colonel Ryan, 405 Adams here in Kimball. Appreciate you being here.
Sure.
Appreciate the work that you do. I would like to know who initiated this. Who came to you in Cheyenne County and said, we want to talk about doing this?
Chief Ruiz did.
People want to know where it came from. I think we're trying to get to the issue of why. I just have a couple of statements. Our city money should not be going to another county. Absolutely not. That's a deal breaker. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Our system is not broke.
Thank you for your opinion. Any other questions?
Mayor, may I ask a question of our?
Sure.
So I know the CAD system has been mentioned, so I will give each of you an opportunity to answer the question. But how is the CAD system working between the Sheriff's Office and the Police Department? Go ahead, Sheriff, you can speak.
So I do know that there were issues, and we heard about these issues based on that they were not brought to at least my attention. I don't know if they were brought to somebody else's attention that they were not working. I think that has been addressed. I think there was an email hopefully sent out to hopefully all of you. I don't know. And in the email said if we missed anybody, let us know. And so hopefully that has been addressed. One thing, we have to know about issues or we can't address them. And maybe it was brought to somebody's attention, but just not the right person. And if that's the case, we do apologize for that. Hopefully it's working now. I guess I haven't heard any feedback.
If I may respond to that. It's been about a month, and we talked to your dispatch supervisor about it. Also, several other dispatchers about the issues of not being able to self-dispatch and enter in our CAD notes. Mine is still not working as of this afternoon, but I believe Sergeant Barbosa's and CSO Lisa are.
And so if that's the case, I do apologize. I will say I think there's a tech support number online. I don't think it has to go for us for the tech support to fix your system.
We've talked to them before, and they said it does. They said we cannot get any access to it. They said it has to go through you guys. So,
and so if that is the case, I apologize. I didn't hear about any information until just the other day. I heard on the radio that there was an issue with it. And if it was longer than that, I do apologize. I didn't know about it until just a couple of days.
And then my other question, besides the CAD system, is how is the radio communication going currently?
As far as radio communication, I guess I don't understand the question you're asking.
So is there good radio communication? Is the radio communication, like how are we using only the CAD system to communicate? Are we calling out radio calls like that?
It still does go over the radio, but it also goes into the CAD at the same time that it. So yes, there is radio communication as well. Yes.
Okay. And the reason I ask, an example would be I have an employee who most of you know their mother-in-law was missing, and so I just wanted to know, like, when you guys put that over the radio, does that go to everyone, or how in the city if a person goes missing and the city police need to know that, like, does that go over the radio? Does that go in the CAD system? Like, how, as an example, was that communicated as an example?
And I don't know if there was an issue with that particular call. I'm unaware. I was out of town for that call, so I don't know how that particular call was handled. I haven't had any complaints brought to me about that call. So I would guess that they would have put it out over the radio and put it into the CAD system as well. Okay. But I wasn't here, so I can't verify any of that. That should be the way it is handled.
And is that the way it's being handled, or?
Situation that we talked about was brought to my attention today, and I know anything about that situation or about the sheriff's office going through. So that
was just an example.
If there was a situation, we need to know about it, or we can't make it.
I was just using that as an example. I was just asking in general, does the radio communication, like, are you guys receiving, right, radio communication, or is it coming through CAD? Are you guys, do you feel like you're both standing here? It's an opportunity for each of you to speak on behalf of how that communication is being handled or not.
So I guess a while back I mentioned if there's problems to let me know so we can address them, make sure they're getting solved properly. The last while I haven't received, it's been a little while since I've received any complaints brought to my attention to address. I do know I did hear on the radio this morning there was, I think it was a call with you where it didn't sound like they were hearing you on the radio. From our end is what it sounded like. I did listen to the recording. There's nothing I'm recording. I don't know if that was your take this morning, but I haven't heard of any issues brought to my attention in the last, month maybe.
How quickly can we get this CAD situation fixed so that we can utilize what we're paying for?
I think it is fixed. Like I said, I think that has been addressed the last couple of days. There was an email sent out. You said yours still wasn't working.
It's still not working, but if I may respond to his statement about not having any complaints recently, I had sent you a message about not being notified when that missing person was, the sergeant had asked the dispatcher to contact me. I was never notified about that. The way that I found out about it was through my sergeant when he gave me a phone call. The other issue that I had spoke to you about was the issue with the warrant, the arrest warrant. I don't know if I can go into detail about that.
Probably not. I don't need detail about that. I guess I just want to make sure that information is going over the radio, right? Radios, it's recorded. Radios are recorded for a reason. The sheriff uses that as evidence, that type of stuff. When you call on cell phones and stuff, that isn't recorded. And so I just...
Dispatched off to one person, so...
Pardon?
I get dispatched the calls off to one person, so...
I as well, and a lot of times they dispatch you on the radio and say all the notes are in CAD and go in CAD and it's incomplete, or if they do it over the radio, they don't get description of person, direction of travel, vehicle involved.
This isn't the time, unfortunately, for that. I appreciate the input.
Can I respond to some of these things, please?
Not at the moment. No.
Okay. But we'll just let them attack the room.
No, we're not letting them attack. I already shut that down. We're not doing that tonight. Tonight we are trying to get information from Heidi. That is all we're trying to do tonight.
I have a question.
Sure.
Directed to Heidi.
Yes.
You said that you self-train some of your people. Is that service available for other agencies? For dispatch?
Yes.
That's good to know.
Yes, and the training that I'm certified to teach is through one of those professional associations called APCO, and I am not allowed to charge for that training. There are materials that do need to be purchased, the training materials, but I personally am not allowed to charge for that training.
So you're in a position to accept a trainee on a schedule.
Yeah.
Say, for instance, if Kimball wanted to send a trainee down for training on dispatch, that you're able to do that.
Yes.
Okay. That's nice to know. Thank you.
I'm Kathy Seibel, Kimball County Clerk. for almost 30 years. I've seen a lot of sheriffs come and go, a lot of chiefs come and go, councilmen, commissioners. As a citizen, I'm a property owner with rental properties. I don't like seeing any of my tax dollars going out to another county unless the service with dispatch here is so bad that lives are at risk. I don't believe that's the case. I received an email today, which I'm not going to share, from a citizen praising our dispatch for their prompt response, their compassion, and everything shown. I look back in the minutes in 2022, it appeared the city and county were working well together. Jeanette came over and the city chief at that time working together to get increased personnel to dispatchers on at most times. As you said, if one's sick or gone on vacation, that's not going to happen. So I guess for me as a citizen and an official, I would like to know just why you decided to do this, and was it enough complaints that warrant life-threatening to our Kimball citizens? If not, I don't think it should be looked at. The other calls that I have received are from Cheyenne County, why we have Kimball police cars in Sydney. I said, I can't answer that. You'll have to call the city. But people down there are wondering, and I'm sure the people here are wondering, why we take our vehicles to Sydney and let them drive them back and forth. So that's my comments.
Thank you for your comment.
I just got a quick question. Brian Johnson, 1224 East State. There's not really been a discussion. I think she mentioned something about what the cost will be done. What would the impact be, positive or negative, on the city's budget versus what we're allowing right now for the dispatch services here versus what the cost would be if we send them over to city?
I don't think we've gotten into that point yet, Brian.
I'm sure that's what a lot of people are wondering at this point. That's been my main thought. What's the impact going to be? Is it going to cost us an extra $30,000, $40,000 a year, or is it pretty close to what we're spending, or is it going to cost us less? I think a lot of people would like to know that.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. But the purpose of the meeting tonight was just to hear from Heidi and get her input, and then we'll move on. There's a lot more input that has to be put in. A lot more discussion that needs to be done before there's a decision made. And so,
can we expect the concerns from everybody to come out in some type of a public forum to say, hey, we know that this question was asked during this meeting. This is our response.
We have more information, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, it's not going to happen at the next meeting or whatever.
Hi, Julia Garrett, 414 South Howard Street. First, I'd like to thank Heidi because we had an extensive conversation earlier today as I was on my own fact-finding mission. And I agree, like most of the citizens here. And when I went in to talk to other groups about budgeting earlier, the consensus was keep Kimball dollars in Kimball County. And I did speak, Rich was nice enough to speak to me earlier as well, as I spoke to numerous agencies across the state gathering information. But a good point was brought up tonight, and it kind of emulated what you had said before. You are here in whatever capacity it is in your job with your impeccable credentials to help us, whether it's the city, on the city level, on the county level, or a combination thereof. But with the question that Rich just brought up, which is amazing, could the solution lie with the training that your division or whatever can provide with your expertise at little cost to us? Could that be the solution to fixing the problem? And I think that's something that I would like you guys to explore while you're checking things out, is how we can utilize these resources with the least amount of expenditure to help facilitate cohesion, because there is. The citizens are apparently angry. The police seem to be frustrated. The sheriff's office seemed to be frustrated, which is kind of superficial nonsense. If we can work together and find solutions, and if they're utilized as a resource instead of we're transferring dollars out of Kimball County. And that's the beauty. That's the best thing that I've heard all day or all week from social media that has come out of this meeting is that we have resources available to us through your group in another county, and we should take advantage of that. You know, let's see what we can do. If you think it's a problem with our people, our employees, let's work together and elevate them so everybody wins. I mean, there's a lot, I'm sure that, well, just speaking with you about my own personal experiences and how a 911 system affected my family or could have affected my family. And if we could build up and have strong teams, not only in Sydney, but in Kimball, and we can all benefit it, then let's try that. Let's not make any rash decisions. Let's see if we can elevate our people first at minimum cost.
I totally agree. Brian Woods, 3712. Quick question. So if you're dispatching specifically for the city police department, how does the rest of Kimball County law enforcement, EMS, fire, state patrol get notified what they may be doing that normally would be communicated already to everybody? So how would that work?
That's a good question. We would notify the Kimball County Dispatch Center through that mutual aid radio channel or through a phone call like we currently do when we have a call in their jurisdiction.
So, and I think what Christy was actually, Ms. Warner was actually trying to ask was, currently, does the sheriff's office currently, when they give out information, does it, I have an ambulance call at 100 Main Street. Does that call go right now from the sheriff's office to the sheriff's office deputies, to the Kimball Police Department, to the fire department, and to the EMS? Does that all go out at one time, right? Was that kind of your question?
Sure, yeah.
We didn't really get an answer either way. Because it was like, well, was it going to CAD?
Right. Yeah. I think you and I are on the same page with that. My understanding of your question was that how does the dispatch center make that notification to all the potentially affected agencies? So at this point, when our comm center gets, we'll say, a traffic accident on the interstate, we have a policy in place that says that we will dispatch the affected agencies first. So we would send the ambulance and we would send the fire department, because the life safety piece is the first and foremost piece. And then our radio system, and I'm sure the Kimball Dispatch radio system is the same. We can activate multiple radio channels at once and do one blanket notification that lets everybody know what's going on. Does that answer your question?
So you would be able to have a domestic situation in Kimball at 100 Main Street. You were saying that you would be able to dispatch everybody all at the same time? All law enforcement, sheriff's office, PD, state patrol if they need?
That would not include
only go to the PD.
It would only go to the PD, and then
the radio call their dispatch.
Yes.
And say there's
for your information.
Because if the PD doesn't ask for them to call them, would you still call them?
I guess that's something that would have to be hammered out. I don't, but different agencies have different policies for how they want backup or if they want backup.
Sure. But I'm just saying from a standpoint, when you have major calls, maybe it's a school shooting in Kimball for some.
Oh, I'm sending everybody.
How does everybody get notified immediately? If it calls into you because the school is in the city limits, there's going to be delayed for sheriff's office, EMS, fire.
So our policy is that we would dispatch the agencies that we dispatch for first and make the secondary notifications to agencies we don't dispatch second. So that in this scenario would include the sheriff's office and state patrol. So we send our people first, and then we send the rest of the cavalry.
Just like the fire officer asked about.
Yes.
The delay in time.
Yes. I mean, are you guys on the SRS system?
I guess I'm on. I guess sorry, I'm not familiar with that. You probably know more when we done.
I do not know.
We are on the statewide radio. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The state radio system.
Yes, we are on.
Okay.
Law enforcement is on the statewide radio system. Fire department and EMS is not on the statewide radio.
So a solution exists there then to address that situation where we could have their frequency, if they allowed that, to be programmed into our CAD for an emergency like that, where we could make that notification simultaneously.
Thank you.
Yes.
I guess one of my other questions or statements is not necessarily directed to you, but I guess it is. It's been mentioned. Is this prompting of this possible move? Is it training issues? Is it personnel issues? And has all entities got together and figured that out and then exhausted every possibility of fixing whatever that, if it's training, we get training. If it's funding, get funding. If it's something else, if it's a personnel issue, they look at the specific personnel issue and fix those things first, leaving our tax dollars. I work with all of these groups, so I'm sorry. I work with all of them. I'm not bashing anybody. Every single one of them have a thankless job. And that's what everybody kind of forgets. Dispatchers are one of the main line people that get forgotten for all kinds of different things. So thank you, number one, for your services.
Thank you.
And two, let's as a community work together, maybe figuring out the issue amongst each other and work together. So thank you.
I may respond to that. I found myself have talked a little bit about the solution. We were talking earlier this week. We were going to try to get together, but our schedules didn't match up. We were talking about meeting next week. Again, this meeting tonight is just informational, just to see what other options are out there. We're not looking to go, if there's a solution that we can keep locally, that's what we want to do. Okay, I have no issues with the sheriff. He has no issues with me. At the end of the day, when things get bad, I have no doubt in my mind he and his deputies would be there to help us. I know that they have no doubt in their mind that we would be there to help them. Again, we're just exploring options, and if we find a solution, keep it here. That's what we want to do.
I have one more question. Just one. Sure. No, I just wanted to get other people. I was going to get back to you.
I grew up with my sister and mom, so I talk a lot. So we gave her Miller by level speaking. This would be for you guys and Chief and Mr. Hotel there. So we keep saying we're just exploring. Why do we approach the Cheyenne County commissioners first? I was at that meeting.
We did not approach them first.
Okay, well, I was at that meeting earlier this week, and that was one of the questions they had. One was the staffing, so I brought it up.
Uh-huh.
Two, they were asking for a dollar amount too. And it was my understanding there was when they asked how soon they were looking to move these services, the comment was said as soon as possible. Chrissy made a comment too about this. It wasn't it was when we moved the services earlier. I don't know if anybody else caught that. But it was almost like this was already decided on. That's all I got.
May I have just a couple minutes?
Again, all we're trying to do tonight was I don't think we need to hold Heidi up forever and ever. I know there's going to have to be more discussion. and I'm not averse to having more discussion. My main goal here is not to make this an us versus them. I do not want to make the sheriff's department as the bad guys. I don't want to make this Kimball Police Department bad guys. We're all good guys. We're all part of Kimball. All we're trying to do is figure out a solution that will be the best thing for everybody, including the county. And this mantra that we keep saying we can't send county dollars outside the county is a false assumption on my part. If we can save everybody money by doing some changes that don't necessarily maintain the status quo, and as my neighbor says, he wants to keep his taxes down. Why wouldn't we do that? I'm sorry. Doing the same thing over and over, and the definition of doing the same thing over and over, I've been told, is idiocy. So let's just look at something else and try to work together and not be at odds with one another. And unfortunately, there's certain things we cannot put out in the public because some of this stuff is personality. You just can't. And I don't want to put some stuff out in the public because I don't want to create animosity. I'm trying to create people to work together. And unfortunately, the only way we can do it is meetings like this. And I didn't want this to be a 3-hour open session meeting. I wanted it to be a nice, concise meeting that we could listen to Heidi and hear her parts about it. And that was my goal, and that's what we're trying to aim towards.
I just have questions for Heidi. That's all.
Okay, I appreciate it.
My name is Todd Peace II. I'm a Kimball County Dispatch Jailer. My question to you is, do you have any experience with dispatching and jailing at the same time? And would you be able to provide training for a dispatch jailer position? Because we're not the only county that does dispatch and jail at the same time. Do you have any type of jail experience and or know how to handle a situation like that with inmates as dispatcher as well?
I don't. I would be happy to reach out to some of the other agencies that do to see if they might have something you guys could benefit from.
Yeah. We can play a game of what ifs all the time. You know, what if an inmate's hanging themselves and we got a 911 call too? You know, I can sit up there all night and think of what ifs.
We've heard this. Okay. Well, if you have a question for her, and she gives you an answer.
Okay.
May I have just a couple minutes? I mean, this is about dispatch.
1 second. What was your address for the record?
7177 Road 48.
Thank you.
Is that Kimball?
It is Potter, Nebraska.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
And I guess to that point, even Scottsbluff does not require their police officers to live within the city limits anymore. And the reason you let people take their car home so they can respond quicker. And all we were trying to do is get the best officers that we could.
Mayor, I'd ask that we let the sheriff speak.
All right. And Dave, I don't have any problem with you speaking. Just try to keep it to the.
And this is what I had a conversation with you earlier, and I said we don't want this to go negative.
That's right.
And we haven't tonight. And I'm thankful.
Try to keep it.
So I can put away some of my notes. But I guess the thing is, I want to clarify just a couple things. This may just take, and I'll try to be as quick as I can. So I have put out there that it was $99,000 was a mutual aid agreement. I know we had some disagreements from Pike. Can you explain that again? I do have the mutual aid agreement that says that it was $41,000, and then 2 years ago it went from $41 to $99. I thought that was all for dispatch services. Can you correct me if I'm wrong? Because this is the interlocal, and that's what it does say.
The dispatch services are rendered. We have it spread across utilities as well, because your office also handles the emergency after hours utility dispatch. So the way we've got it budgeted is there's $69,300 to the sheriff's department for the police department dispatch, and just over $35,000 goes across the utilities dispatch for the 24 hours.
So the total comes to $99,000 for dispatch services. Is that correct?
It's actually for this year it's $104,000.
So $104,000 for dispatch services.
69 of it is for the police department.
So I wasn't wrong. It wasn't 69. It was 104. In fact, for dispatch services.
Just for the police. So
but this is dispatch services that we're talking about.
The police department, you could only move to 69.
Okay. So I think it's important for the public to know one thing here. And what's that? And I'm going to ask just for a quick little, I guess, a couple of you were dispatchers, right? So I'm going to show you a call that we could have. And I want you to pass it to her, pass it to him. Yeah. I think everybody's played this game, a simple telephone game. Can you read that and then pass it to and I'll keep the paper.
I'm not playing this game. I'm sorry.
Well, then play it for three people. Because you know at the end of the line, it's not going to be the same.
I've seen this game, and
so,
it's not the purpose of what we're here for.
No, but I think the citizens should know our dispatch center is on the phone.
You can watch the definition of what you're saying or what you're asking them to read, how it will change between every individual.
And it does.
And
so our dispatch center answers 18,000 calls a year. Do we make mistakes? Absolutely we do. And I apologize for the mistakes. Are some of them serious? Absolutely they are. I've sat down with Mike and we went through some of them. The PD's mentioned some. 18,000 calls, there's bound to be some mistakes.
You're not arguing that.
But so then the 99,000 or 104,000 that would leave our county, here's the thing. We have to staff our jail with
David,
whatever the number.
Yes.
We have to staff our jail, whether we dispatch or not. We still have to pay for dispatch for jailers 24/7. So when we remove that, the county still has to pay for our jailers to be out there, whether we're answering the 911 calls or not. Is it a perfect system? Absolutely not. You brought up what's the cost of life. I'd love to have a helicopter. I could respond to calls way faster. That's not in our budget. And when we remove that money from our budget, I have to go and ask the commissioners for more money.
That's Dave. That's your problem.
And I know it's our problem, but it should be all of our problem.
Just relax a bit. Just relax a bit. What I said, if you want to listen, you can listen. The problem there is, if you would have the opportunity to do something that would be better and safer for everyone, including the people on the call, why wouldn't you at least look at it? It doesn't. I'm not looking at this as a dollars and cents situation. I'm looking at this as a safety situation for everyone, not just for the police and the sheriff, but for the dispatchers, for the person that's on the other end of the line. I want that to be the safest situation we can. And the fact that we don't necessarily have enough money to make the safest situation that we can shouldn't be the determining factor. Why would we not have the best system that we can have if we can figure out a way to do it that could maybe save that one life in 5 years?
Will you look at my helicopter out back next week for me?
I sure would if we could do that.
Okay. Pretty much a snide statement, thank you.
It kind of was.
It was.
And that is there. But we will give you as much money as we can afford. We will do as much as we can to help you so that people are safe and that we have the right system. And you asked, where did that come from? The only reason that Jose did that is because he was directed by the council to start looking. It didn't come from Jose. And anybody that blames him is mistaken. It came directly from the council. And so we're trying to look at something. And if we can work out a local solution, I can guarantee you, but this kind of attitude and this kind of saying that we just can't afford it, I'm not up for that. You need to figure out a way to afford, and if you get more money and you can get to where we need you to be, I'm willing to look at that. I don't necessarily necessarily have to go out of town, but we have to fix the situation.
And I would ask that you not be making what you feel are snide statements. That's not helping anything.
I would ask that you not be defensive. Your citizens think your defensiveness is uncalled for.
It's not defensive.
We resent your defensive
I will
every turn in this sort of discussion.
I will apologize to everybody here.
And when I talked to you the other day about the police,
comments on it.
The other thing is, if this is a done deal, if you're just pulling our chains, people are not going to be happy. If you're giving the chief
do you think this is a done deal?
Yeah.
You know what? A lot of people do. I'm not sure, but it slips. If it smells like.
That's your opinion.
It's absolutely not a done deal.
It's not even close.
I'm just saying.
Well, don't say it because it isn't true. It's not even close.
Mr. Mayor,
my comment was if.
Happy Seibel, thank you all for what you do, and I know what we do on our end. My question is, why would we have looked there to begin with? Was there a life lost here? Was there a close call? Was it bad dispatch? What would make you want to reach out? What can they do better that we can't? And that's what I have as a question.
Part of that we cannot share because part of that is.
Okay, and I understand that. I did like the comments for the two entities put together for the safety of our citizens. And we all want that. And I think that's what you all want.
Yes.
And we don't want to let feelings and frustrations and anger get out of control because then things go south. So we try to work together. We have a joint city-county town hall meeting or whatever it might take.
May I make a comment?
Sure.
So everybody wants to know how did this get started, that type of stuff. And while we can't discuss everything, what I can tell you is, right, we were provided situational evidence that there are some concerns. And when there's those types of concerns,
I would be careful going down the native road.
That's all I said.
Because there's plenty both sides here. I'd be careful.
We're not perfect.
May I finish? I gave you your turn.
Yeah, but you're borderline putting our department.
Let her finish.
So
let you guys put us down and we won't rebuttal.
We're not putting you in the end.
So
yes,
so we asked more questions. We've asked more questions. And I will say right here, if both sides, I have always been a person who would say, come to the table, sit down, and let's talk about it. But that requires both sides to sit down at a table, right? Be willing to accept their responsibility on both sides and communicate on what they could do to improve. And would I hope that that happens? I would. And I do hope that somebody is taking my every little word. I do hope that that happens.
Would both sides be allowed to be present?
Guess what? I don't get to be present to those. I'm not invited to those meetings. I'm asking, right? And I would hope.
Well, I sat here in a meeting and I watched it where you got up and you told lies about my department in a meeting right in here.
Not the place for that.
So that would be to me. By the way,
I would hope that both sides can sit down at a table and work together. Because guess what? All law enforcement is important. And while that was taken out of context, I absolutely support all law enforcement. I do.
Okay, this has gone on for an hour and a half. I think the questions that Heidi has answered has been very helpful. I appreciate you coming here. Thank you. I would hope that you do not get a bad impression of Kimball. All we're trying to do is the best thing for our city. I know that's what you're trying to do, Sydney. I don't think we would accomplish anything else by continuing this part of the agenda. Like I said, this is not the end of this situation. I thank you all for that. Now we're going to move to the next item on the agenda. Can you make that speech formally? Thanks. Thank you, Heidi. Thanks, Heidi. Thank you, Heidi. The next item on the agenda is the adoption of the resolution of signing of the year-end certification. The city street superintendent, Tim Shute. Do I need to read the resolutions?
No, you don't.
They're right. No. There motion to that resolution. So, second, please vote.
Yes.
Ayes, motion approved.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
The next one on the current agenda is the year-end certification. That was a resolution. Now we need the year-end certification of the city street superintendent, Jim Shoup, for calendar years 2021. Our motion.
I'll second.
Please vote.
All ayes, motion.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the approval of us hiring a new building inspector. He has come up with a up-to-date building permit fee schedule. Doing a lot of work on this. Questions from the council on this schedule?
So what I have in front of you, first of all, our new building inspector, Roger Staple, comes to us with over 20 years of experience and is fully certified. So we're very thankful that he's now part of Kimball. He's working with me to build up something that we desperately needed, which is a more defined building permit process. We're looking at our permit chart. As you can see on the first page there, the city of Kimball, we just went off of a basic $75,000 project fee for new construction. As you can see, we're quite outdated as far as our fees are concerned. A lot of what the fees are related to is paying for those reviews of plans and for the personnel that's needed to actually go out and do those inspections throughout the construction. So on the first page is a comparison to the local panhandle area. We did go as far out as Cheyenne. Obviously, it's quite a bit more. They're a larger municipality and larger city, but that's just so everybody has a good comparison across the board. What we are looking to do is get some guidance from council if you're comfortable with us moving forward with updating our permit fees to be more in line with the rest of the panhandle. And then we've got a couple of options there. What Rodney and I have discussed in detail is the format that the city of Cheyenne has is very workable, very, very easy. What they have is a building permit fee, and then should it be one of those situations where we have to do plan review, and we're talking like engineering plans and diagrams and what have you, and it's pretty detailed, for instance, a commercial building, that we add a secondary fee for that, which is similar to what Cheyenne does. So we're looking at some guidance there from council if that's something they're considering. We would not, obviously, I do not suggest we match or look at the fees that are similar to Sydney, but simply the system in play. If somebody were to come in with just a simple garage addition, we wouldn't have to do a plan review, so obviously that extra fee wouldn't be there. So
I guess my question is there going to be fees for taps and that kind of stuff included as well? I know it's not a building permit, but that's something that we've talked about for a few years. And
that is an option. That is something that we didn't put in this packet, so we could even do, if you have to do a mechanical inspection or a roof inspection, we could add those fees as well. So
I guess
we were trying to kind of start at the base and
from an aspect of encouraging people to move here, be in business here, I would ask that it's as cheap as possible because it's new income into the community. Albeit I understand you need to make sure they're up to code so they're safe with people living in them and stuff like that. But if we can be as user friendly, I guess, so that when, because I assume in some cases they'll look at those same dollar amounts. But when they're looking at, well, do I look at Kimball? Do I look at Sydney or Shattuck? We want to be, cheaper in Kimball, because we'll see that maybe that $50 get made up in the first year of the build because you've got new assessment that you're not do. I would just ask that because it's new money being added in, be the cheapest that we can be. Just to be competitive and set ourselves apart from everyone else. Which I think everybody usually wants to see new houses, new businesses, that type of stuff. So let's set ourselves apart, and if we need to bump it up a little bit to account for the salary, so still be a little bit lower. everything was cheap, like once we got. I don't know.
You can continue to work on that and bring it to you at the next meeting.
Any other?
I do like having the two pieces, right? A permit fee, and then if it's going to involve more, they pay more. I think that seems to be reasonable, but I can see the agreement on trying to keep that total below the neighbors, but
it's a way to attract people without having to spend money to attract them. No, your tax incentives, TIF, that kind of stuff. It's a easy way to hopefully attract. Probably maybe it's only $50 or more, but we only look good to attract stuff.
And in agreement with what you're saying, that's one of the reasons we didn't bring forward all the additional fees. Every city literally tax a fee to just about every little thing and every inspection. At $178 for 75,000, it's pretty low. So we could definitely work on those calculations and get it somewhere in between without having too much excess.
I would have to know if that's going to be something long past my time or whatever, but I guess I would implore the new council just to look at trying to set ourselves apart.
So Brian, you're a contractor. You have a few questions. When we go there, would you please?
Yeah, Brian Johnson, owner of Johnson Construction here in town. I think most everybody knows that. Just kind of going through a few things that I would kind of, not necessarily question, but kind of put in for suggestions whenever we're doing this. As far as like the, what's it called, plan reviews. If we're going to do a large enough project where we're going to have plan reviews, most of the times we as contractors are going to get a stamped set of prints from an engineer, from an architect that says this is how it's got to be built to the 2018 IRC codes.
And now
my question is, what do we need plan review for if we're going to have a stamped print of stuff? There's something that comes back on it, it's going back to the architect and engineer that stamped the print. So I don't know how much of a plan review we need.
But there are, we're going to get this plan from some guy that's just on a piece of paper.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's what I'm saying. Have it in there. If it comes in, I bring in a piece of paper that says, here's the house I'm going to build. Obviously, you need a plan review. But if we've went out and done the right thing and got the engineered stamp prints, it says this is the plans per that. It should just be able to go into the building inspection and say, this is what we're going to go off of. So
you're absolutely correct.
And the other thing I was kind of wondering about is, I don't know if it's pertinent to this because we're talking about the pricing, but I would like to be able to have an open forum to have all of the local contractors and whoever's going to that does work here is to have a meeting with the new inspector and also to find out what is going to be inspected, what's not going to be inspected. I mean, if I go and put in a door for $200, it looks looking in here, I got to pay $30-some.
Right.
So I mean, we need as contractors to know what the city and what the inspector is going to be expected to inspect, what we're expected to pay for on fees and things like that, so that we can all be on the same page. Because I am all for a building inspector and code enforcement. It puts me and the other contractors on a level playing field because I come behind a lot of them. I'm not going to say any names, but I'm just saying we come behind on work and it's like somebody got paid for this. And I understand we haven't had a building inspector for a long time. And there were a lot of growing pains when I built the spec homes. A lot. And I just want to make sure that we're on the same page with that. What's that?
And thank you for all those last tips.
Oh, there were some expensive ones, there were some long ones, but it's good because it brings it to light what we need to work on.
And I don't see a reason we can't have a meeting like this.
No, not at all. And that up, Brian, because it is new. It's new to the community. It's new to the city. It's something that we've needed to implement for a couple of years, and it took quite a while to find somebody with those certifications. It's not an easy thing to do, is to just find somebody that is willing to come to school.
And I will put it out there. I'll be more than happy to be of any assistance that I can.
Great. He's just going on barely week 3, so I threw him into the deep end really quickly here. And and again, it's just a matter of trying to get us to where we need to be to make sure that the revenue is there with the expenses, because we all know we're in a tight budget. He's very open. He's here 3 days a week in the office, so please come by. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here this evening, your concerns are very valid, and I'm very open to them, and thank you for those. We will absolutely make sure that all the contractors are aboard. He's already met a couple, so please come by. And we're not looking to make it any more difficult. The reason all those different pricings are in there is so council can see the difference and decide which direction we want to go. Do we want to go as detailed as doors? And probably not, but we're starting to grow, and because you've built some of the first houses in 4 years.
My thoughts are, if you're adding on to square footage of the home, or you're dealing with something structure, taking out a little bearing wall, there need to be some plans, and I understand that, and that's like, but like I said, going back to the plan reviews, like I said, we're paying $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 for stamp sets of prints, and then we've got to pay an additional another $700,000-$800,000. It's
and that would not be the situation. So if they are engineered stamps and they're already done deal, per code, we're ready to go. We'll just have that fee. Because that's why we thought we'd have it separated. So should it be a situation where we do have to read that to try and keep those labor hours.
And I'm all for it. I wanted to stand here in front of everybody saying that I'm all for these codes. I'm all for enforcement of them, because the homeowner is paying outrageous amounts of money now to have stuff done just simply because the cost of materials and cost of labor. They're paying good money for it, so they should be getting quality work that's going to pass codes. 100% agree to it.
Anybody else?
Have a question. So, we sign off on the deal. Having the inspector and stuff prior to this, it should be, like Brian said, a big benefit to the contractors, because then everything's up to snuff. There's nobody cutting corners, splitting, wiring X when it should be Y. And to me, I think that's a benefit to the homeowner, safety-wise, and also contractors. Hey, I can't have somebody that's coming in and undercutting on price. They're just simply not going to make enough money. They're not just going to use a lower quality X when we should use D. So
that is correct. And just so everybody knows, this council, thank you very much, did go ahead and we passed that ordinance to follow 2018 International and Residential Building Codes per state statute. We did that just a little over a year and a half ago. We're talking about this process. And like Gabe said, it's about life and safety. It's not about money. It's not about revenue. It's not about trying to stick it to a contractor. It truly is life and safety. So when somebody does build that house, by the way, beautiful homes, that you don't have to worry about your children or fire late at night or something terrible happening on your porches. So that is our goal here, is having a safe community, life and safety for our residents and any new builds that come down.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to change the order of the agenda for tonight.
Can I ask another quick one? When is the switch going to be flipped to when he's going to actually be starting inspecting?
He's here now.
It's happening.
Okay. Because one of the things I ran into is, like, especially with a lot of these roads we've been doing, I see codes calling for certain things, but the insurance isn't paying for them because.
That's another thing Rodney and I discussed, because I know you and I had some discussions a few weeks back, maybe a couple months now, about like roofs and barriers. So that's another thing that Rodney's working on, to make sure that we have those instilled to help you as a builder contractor here.
Because it's helping the homeowners, I think, because we're able to put out a better product for them, and the insurance is picking up the bill, not them. So
you're spot on. And we actually, Rodney and I had that discussion today about what we need to have in place that we haven't, just for homeowners and their insurance. So. Yeah, thank you.
And I'll be more than happy to have any better if he wants to call me at any time. I'll be more than happy.
I tried to hire you a year ago, but thank you.
So we're going to skip the last item on the current business for now, and so that the public can be involved. I'm going to go to the reports next. The first report will be mine. I'm going to steal a little bit of, I'm sure, Annette's news. I just want to say that the new generators that we bought are over in position, and they look really good. They're all covered up. They're all on the slab, ready to go. All I got to do is build the building around them. The street project at 7th and Vista is almost done. That was in our budget. Luckily, it was in our budget, and we had to tear up that that area anyway for the sewer and water for the new apartment building that is also getting about done. And also progress is going on Nadine Street where the duplex is being put up by Days Inn. And finally, I want to say again that our police department is doing a fine job. Shouldn't be receiving any criticism for what the council is studying. We can disagree in Kimball, but it should be on issues only and not on personalities. And so as long as we can keep it there, I have no problem with people not agreeing with what I say, and because that's just a fact of life. So that's my report. I think you go in next to that.
Okay, steal my thunder. The gens are set, the generators, excuse me. They're pretty impressive, so if you have time, please go look at them sitting on their pads. The building will be here in approximately 2 weeks. During that time, we will shut down Berg Street in between the water shop and the electric shop, so between First and just south of the electric shop, simply for staging purposes. We don't have room. So, and they are going to continue building. We plan to have the building up and running here by probably mid-December now because of the shipping being a little backlogged. Otherwise, moving forward, they're still looking at a June 2025 completion date. So that's exciting. Part of the process is an application to the Power Review Board. I'd like to say thank you to David Scott, City Manager out in Sydney, and his staff for allowing me to be a part of their application process. I was in Lincoln and went to their actual hearing. The State Power Review Board required them to have a hearing for their power generation. They are just a few steps in front of us for the same exact project we're doing. So it was an amazing learning lesson, and we are on our path forward on that. So I'll be in the hands of the Power Review Board here this week, and I expect there to be no issues. Again, thank you to Sydney. The electric department is working on setting poles out at Salem Mobile Home Park. There's a lot of growth there. It's still continuing. People are moving into town, and we have growth happening. So the electric department is busy between new housing, setting poles, upgrading electricity, and of course our power generation. So water department, as the mayor said, 2nd Street is moving forward. We're calling it Nadine or 2nd Street. Currently 2nd Street is shut down. We are waiting on concrete. They're looking at 2 more concrete pours for that to be done, and we expect all of that to be finally cleared up and moved into the easement and the alleyways for those medium-use duplexes next week. So thank you to the public for being as patient as you could be with all of our construction. Some days it feels like you're driving Del Range in Cheyenne, but it's exciting because we're growing. We do have a generator now at our North Well. That is a 3-year-old project that started back when Carson was with us, and he was gracious enough to get us a $10,000 grant approval at the time, and we finally cut that grant 3 years later. Generators installed should there be an emergency. Our water system in town is protected, and we're ready to go, and we don't have to worry about not having water. And we did receive that $10,000 this week. Wastewater treatment plant is moving ahead with the timeline. Next week, November 12th, is our Board of Public Works meeting. We will have our engineers here to talk about the construction timeline, moving ahead for bids, and we are moving forward with that. So if you want to join, please do so, November 12th at 5 p.m. City Park, the playground, we talked about it. We ran into issues with the temperatures dropping really quickly. We did bring the sand and pea gravel back in, so the playground equipment is open for play. The small swing set is still not ready to go, but should kids want to go out and play in 30 degrees, they can. And in the spring, we will bring back the concrete pad and the tile and get that completed. So thank you for the patience there as well. And electric is also going to be looking at upgrading the lighting in City Park in the next couple weeks. Streets is moving along. We're prepping for snow season. We're ready to go there. As the mayor said, 7th Street is nearing completion. The Clean Harbors Apartments are looking to receive their certificate of occupancy in the next few weeks to get people moved into those, and Rodney will be a part of that as well. So that's all I have at the moment.
I have one question.
Yeah.
So like with the water, having the generator now, so we can get water even if electricity's down. Mm-hmm. And then like when we did the north feed from High West, Taylor, when we do that 3 years ago. I was up here these days.
It's like a long time ago.
I don't remember yesterday.
Well, it's like you're talking about the highway speed. It's probably been about a year.
It's like with those water and generators and stuff. We have that up on the website that we have those. So like if hell comes, high water, whatever.
We can do that.
You know, just because it makes the place safer. Like back when I was still here, he was on auction 24/7. You got somebody who's older that needs those resources. Kimball's a safe place to be.
Yes.
Because you've got the North Beach, you've got generators, and then you've got your standard power that we get through our normal supplier. I just think that's stuff that we look at marketing our community because it's stuff that doesn't necessarily get thought of, but we've put the resources in place.
You are correct.
So we may as well
Brag it up?
Yeah.
We can do that. I currently have office staff now going through different pages of the website to make sure we're up to date, so we can absolutely add those to each utility page. We can make that happen.
Sure. I think it's, we spent the money.
No, brag it up. For as small as we are, we have some great amenities, as well as, like the transit center being a Red Cross center in the winter. We do have some amazing things between the county and city, so we can brag it up. Not a problem.
I think the other thing, you talked about the park. I remember 3 weeks ago, wife and my two oldest went there on a Sunday afternoon. She said there's like 11 kids there playing. On a Sunday afternoon. The youngest and I stayed and watched football, but the other two, and they enjoyed it. So I think that's awesome that there's new things for littles to go do, and it'll be even better when we get that floor in line. But it's good to see.
And Chief, did you forego a report tonight?
This meeting has gone on quite a while, so I will wait until next meeting to give my report.
Council? Christy, do you have anything that you would want to report? Dave?
I just wanted to echo what Annette was saying and just, offer just how it is. We spent some money, so it's like everybody take the resources we have to show we're a safe place to be. So,
Greg?
I've done enough damage tonight.
No.
Greg, as a new member?
I'm just happy to be here.
Thank you.
I'm happy to be back.
Happy to have you.
Yeah. Thank you for coming back, and we'll draw upon your experience.
Thank you.
And you're welcome as a new member. Welcome on board. And happy here. So the next item, there is nothing under other business. The next item is public comment. The only thing I would like to say to this is you have every right to speak now, and I would more than welcome it. Please keep it just 3 minutes. But you have to remember, the council and I cannot, by law, respond. And if you have spoken before and give us your concerns, we have heard your concerns. We've listened to your concerns. If you have new concerns, please come and give them to us. I have no problem with that at all. Just please keep your comments to issues and not personalities is all I ask. So is there anybody that would like to speak tonight at the public comment?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit more. I'm not tired yet. Gabriel Miller, I live in South Webster. You talked about the generator and the power plant and all that, or the water treatment plant and all that stuff, which I agree with you guys. It is an excellent thing. The problem I got is infrastructure in Kansas crap. I mean, we can probably all agree on that. We break water lines all the time. I lived out in the county for about 10, 12 years before I moved into town. I have lost power more times in town than what I ever did out in the county. I think we should have focused a lot more on fixing our infrastructure before we start blowing all the money on generators and redoing the power plant. The other thing, we talked about the Salem mobile homes. I don't know, I haven't looked up the growth there, but I'd be curious to know how much of that growth is false growth. Like the Clean Harbors expansion that's going in,
We rent a couple houses out. People that rent those houses are people that's working on that expansion. They're temporary. They're going to be leaving. So before we start planning on that, I would ask that you guys be mindful of the people that are coming in might not be staying. A lot of people that rent houses, they rent because they don't plan on staying. People that buy stay. But we've made it so unaffordable in Kimball with taxes and everything else that it's hard to live in town anymore. I'm not going to lie, there's been conversations with me and the wife about moving back out to the country because of cost of living in city limits. It's more than tripled. So that's all I got. And as far as the police go, I can't disagree with you guys more. They do an awesome job. Touch on that just a little bit is communication is a key factor with everybody's jobs. And if you ever lose that communication, safety is a huge aspect, and you guys preach safety a lot up there tonight. And you put a dollar amount on safety. One of the easiest, cheapest things we can do is communication. And when we got city and county not talking, that's sad. So,
any other comment?
Taylor Brown, 417 South Birch Street. I will assure you our infrastructure is not this crap. I can say that since I've worked for the city, the electric department, we have not had a year that our outages have been longer than 30 minutes long. Some, yes, are hours, but anything controlled by the city, by us, is not more than 30 minutes. As to the growth out at Stayless Trailer Park, I do have intimate knowledge as to what's going on out there, and I have talked to a surprising amount of them who are planning and already committed to buying houses over in that new subdivision. So I would just hate for anyone to think that that isn't going to happen, because I've talked personally to 20 at least of them, and I'll be honest, that's 20 more than I thought we were going to get. As far as the police departments, I'm also the assistant fire chief, for anyone who doesn't know. I have communicated with that sheriff's office more times than they probably would care to hear me talk to them on the radio and on the phone. They have been nothing but professional. Ruiz is by far the most professional and easiest to talk to police chief we have had that I can ever remember. And I, again, born and raised here, I would not trade him for any of the other ones we've ever had. So for whatever comes of this meeting, I will stand up here for you, Chief, that you are a stand-up person, and nobody should think anything else of you. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. You have a motion. We keep going. Yes, that's fine. On the motion,
I would make a motion to go into executive session pursuant to Nebraska revised statute 84-1410 to discuss personnel, and I would like to actually also invite future Councilwoman Murdoch in, as she will be coming in soon, December 3rd, to be my guest. Actually, for beginning of to probably bring her in as and then Rose Allen, and then Jean Mason as well.
Yeah, plus everybody else.
Mr. Mayor, it's my understanding to go into a closed session, you need to have personnel on your agenda. That's what we were told today. We like to closed session has to do with that. Is it on there? Discuss personnel
issue. What's the topic that we were
I brought up? Salary.
Salary.
Consider salary increase. Oh, you want to go into executive session on that? Okay. All right.
So then it needs to be clearly spelled out.
Yeah, it's on the agenda.
He just didn't phrase it correctly.
No, that's fine. Yeah, as long as you're going in for that purpose, yes.
It's the only purpose. We're going to talk about anything like that. I think she deserves courtesy and not here. Then we'll come out and make a motion so they'll know what the.
We'll come out of executive session and make
a motion in executive.
For a second.
Second.
Okay, please vote.
Yes.
All ayes.
Thank you all for coming. So we will come back out of executive session if you want to come back in. Thank you again.
I just
Rosella, do we know if anybody's watching?
I'll send it to you.